I think they're still number 2, number 3. They could be number 1. But I don't think with this current schedule, they were overexposed. I think the Cowboys are one of the 8 or 9 most interesting teams. They have 2-star receivers, a star quarterback. I mean, they move the chains. They have an offensive coach. They'll be one of the top 5 total offenses probably in the NFL. So I think they're one of the top 8 or 9 most interesting teams. And there were exactly 5 teams that had more primetime games this schedule release and 4 more that had as many games. So it puts them in a group of 9 teams getting the most TV exposure. I think they're on the bottom end of that, 8th or 9th most interesting team. I don't think they're as fascinating, as the Chicago Bears. I think the Rams are more interesting to watch. The Chiefs with Mahomes, Buffalo Bills. Philadelphia is always a circus, but I think Dallas is much more interesting than most teams in the league, especially most of their really interesting players are offensive guys. So I looked at the schedule, though, and you know what my takeaway on Dallas' schedule is that for years, there are certain athletes that I'm seeing as like harder on or less enamored with than the general consensus in the media. Baker Mayfield, Cam Newton, Carmelo Anthony, Austin Reeves. And I've always said about Dak, my favorite part of Dak is his intelligence and his maturity. I don't think aesthetically he throws a pretty ball. He went in the 4th round for a reason. His college coach, Dan Mullen, came on our show once and said, no, we didn't think it's not much to look at. But the truth is, when I looked at Dallas' schedule, what jumped out to me is of the 17 games, I think Dallas has the better quarterback in 13. Now, I think Lamar Jackson is more explosive. I think Sam Darnold and Matt Stafford at home are really good quarterbacks. Jordan Loves go either way. When Jordan's hot, he's better. He's often not. Now, he faced Dak in a playoff game years ago and just was unbelievable. But I think my ultimate respect for Dak Prescott is when you look at the schedule, and this is a way to look at your schedule, try to be as objective as you can as a fan. How many games do you have the better quarterback?
All right. Let's discuss that. Because, all of this sounds great in theory. But we know Colin doesn't think Jalen Hurts is an elite quarterback, apparently. And yet they won the Super Bowl, and they win plenty of games, including their split with the Dallas Cowboys, and so on. So ultimately, this comes down to how strong, or not, this team is going to be. Not just Dak Prescott. Right? Dak is a better quarterback than Bo Nix was last year, and yet Bo Nix and the Broncos ran right over Dak and the Cowboys. Jacoby Brissett, Dak Prescott is certainly better than Jacoby Brissett, and Brissett beat Dak in Dallas. So I just don't know how much any of that matters to me right now in general, let alone when talking specifically about the Cowboys. But before I go any further, Dallas Cowboys fans, please, please, please don't forget to subscribe and watch the full video. When you do that, viewership skyrockets, subscriber numbers go through the roof. It's not about chasing views or chasing subscribers, it's about creating Dallas Cowboys content that people genuinely want to watch and discuss, so we can have real, honest, grounded, unbiased conversations about this team that are actually rooted in reality. When you watch the video and subscribe at the same time, it creates such an avalanche effect, and it goes such a long way to support the growth of this channel so we can keep making the best possible Dallas Cowboys content. But yeah, I think the schedule itself, there are. And really any brutal stretches where you just think, oh man, this is punishing. And I guess the Cowboys are a perfect example of a team where I look at the schedule as a whole and I just think, well, how good are the Giants going to be? How good are the Commanders going to be? How good are the Packers going to be? How good are the Eagles going to be? How good are the Seahawks going to be? How good are the Jaguars going to be? It's all these teams where I'm just like, well, how good are you actually going to be? Who are you right now? The schedule isn't flooded with matchups where you can say, well, we know the Rams are going to be good. We know the Ravens are going to be good. We know the Bills are going to be good. So it's just like, how complete are these teams? How quickly does Jackson Dart and Harbaugh get the Giants on track, if at all? CJ Stroud, how are you playing in Week 4 against the Houston Texans? Are you ready to be the franchise quarterback? Yes or no? Even a team like the Tennessee Titans in Week 11. I believe in Cam Ward. This is going to be his first year with an actual coaching staff, etc. And by Week 11, are you ready to roll? Does Brian Daboll have you playing at the best version of yourself right now? Yes or no? Or are you still kind of working things out? So it's just pretty interesting to me. I also look at it this way. I think the NFL, when they had, for instance, the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions play that last game, and same thing with the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers, they had essentially back-to-back seasons where it came down to, you win this game, you win the division, you get the number 1 seed, a first-round bye. It had epic consequences. It's an extra playoff game in terms of significance. And the NFL absolutely wants that. Especially the Vikings versus the Lions, that was billed as having insane stakes. They tried to do similar with the 49ers and the Seahawks, but I think the Lions and the Vikings had a bit more momentum. The build-up was massive. And again, with the 49ers and the Seahawks, it was like, if the 49ers win, they get home field advantage, they could literally be playing the Super Bowl at home. The only thing holding them back was how banged up and injured they were. Does anyone really believe in them right now? And with the Seahawks, people were asking, Sam Darnold, how good is he actually going to be in the playoffs? Is he going to turn into a pumpkin? But the league absolutely wants that. That's why a lot of these end-of-season games end up being meaningless, but they're always hoping. They're always thinking, man, do we hope that final game between the Eagles and the Cowboys is going to be huge, crucial, important. And interestingly, you have the Giants playing the Eagles in the final game of the season, and you have the Cowboys playing the Commanders in the final game. Weirdly enough, that kind of signals to me that the NFL views the Cowboys as probably being right around where they've been the last few years, kind of a good team, can win some games, maybe make the playoffs. See how it unfolds, see what happens. But I think the schedule, and again, I always have to throw this caveat out, division games are division games, especially in the NFC East. The Eagles and the Cowboys seemingly always split. Historically, the Cowboys have certainly been in a position to roll over the Commanders and the Giants, but the Giants now have these new pieces and the Commanders have been better, so it'll be interesting to see how that balances out. I think this division will be a lot more competitive than it's been in quite some time. So it'll be interesting to see how those division games start to unfold, what Jackson Dart and the Giants actually look like, and an actual healthy, experienced Jaden Daniels with the Commanders. But ultimately, what's always done the Cowboys in is more or less their ability to roll over bad teams, be kind of competitive with good teams, but then just be outclassed by the great teams. They've always come up ever so short. And when you look at the teams you could have the most confidence in, I'm not saying this is guaranteed or even my prediction, I'm talking about a level of confidence. You could be confident that the Rams are going to be an awesome, great team. You could be confident about that. You could be confident that at bare minimum, the Ravens are going to be really tough to beat. Whether they end up being truly great, they're not going to be an easy out. You have Lamar Jackson as your quarterback, that's always going to be difficult. As long as he's healthy and in his prime, it's going to be hard. That's just the way I see it. And you could maybe even add the Seahawks to that list, remains to be seen a little bit. Then everyone else has room to fluctuate. The Eagles can absolutely be great. They could win a Super Bowl or they could not. Maybe the Buccaneers are competitive. Maybe the Texans. What's the story with the Packers? So they're not really playing a ton of those bona fide games, the Bills, the Detroit Lions, those kinds of opponents. They don't have a ton of those games on the board. So to me, this schedule probably positions them in the best possible situation, because they're playing a lot of teams and a lot of games that they've historically done incredibly well against. The Colts, the Cardinals. I was talking to Grover, who's a big Cowboys fan. He was saying, that's the game where the Cowboys are clearly better, but they'll still find a way to lose it or something. And yeah, but I'm looking more at how many games are we really kind of saying, okay, the Cowboys and Dak tend not to be at their best. Again, maybe things are changing. I try not to use the past as too much of a reference point. But I think that still continued last season, even with Schottenheimer and Dak. But the question is, will Dak lead Dallas back to the playoffs? And I just think that's the wrong question, more than anything. Can this team actually prove it can compete at the highest level against the best teams? Can you actually hang with the Baltimore Ravens, with the Los Angeles Rams, with the Seattle Seahawks? That's what matters to me more than anything. Not finding ways to beat the Giants, the Buccaneers, the Cardinals, and the Colts. Can you actually compete at the highest level and finally get over this hump? Because the Cowboys for years now, Dak Prescott for years, has struggled against teams with winning records and playoff teams. That has been the constant. That has been the constant. And when you now have this elite offense, 2 elite wide receivers, a great running game, a great offensive line, and a coach who honestly quite frankly really impressed me offensively, and you believe you've upgraded on defense with more depth and filled your holes and you're confident in your defensive coach as well, it's like, okay, are you ready to take it to the next step here? Because we can compare just quarterbacks, but the other way to look at it is, what about coaches? Is Shanahan a better coach than Harbaugh? Is he better than Dan Quinn? Is he better than D'Amico? Is he better than LaFleur? You could pick whichever coach you want, Sean Mannion, Fangio, Sirianni, Shanahan, Saleh, McDonald. So it's not just a matter of having a better quarterback. It's about how complete is your team? Dak Prescott lost a bunch of games last year against quarterbacks you could clear. LY say he's better than. He clearly had a better year, better stats, better this, better that. Still lost. Didn't even make the playoffs. So I understand that Colin always wants to reduce it to just quarterback versus quarterback. It no doubt matters and is important. But I think the Cowboys were a perfect example last year of something else. Maybe the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes lost a bunch of games where he was clearly the better quarterback, and yet he lost. So you have to look beyond that. You have to look at coaching. You have to see what coach you're going up against. That's why I look at Shermer going up against D'Amico, or Shermer going up against Fangio more than Sirianni. I look at the coach on one side of the ball going against the coach on the other side, whether it's a head coach or coordinator. I look at those two matchups, offense versus defense versus offense. That's what I'm looking at more than anything. That's just my mentality right now. I do think it's a very favorable schedule for the Dallas Cowboys. I see them definitely winning plenty of games. And to me, it'll just be like, they could win every single game except lose to the Ravens, the Rams, and the Seahawks, and I'd just think, yep, they're not a great team. They're exactly who the Cowboys have always been. Congrats, you destroyed the Cardinals and the Colts, and you split with the Eagles. Same old story for me. But if they take down the Ravens, take down the Seahawks, take down the Rams, not all of them, but at least one of them, and it just feels like, hey, you're hanging with them, you're right there with them, that matters so much more to me. Seeing what Dak Prescott does against that Houston Texans defense, that matters so much more to me. Seeing what that defense can do against a high-powered 49ers Kyle Shanahan offense, if everyone's healthy and their offense is rolling as it has in years past, does that defense actually slow it down? Does that defense actually become an asset in the middle of that game? Do they force a crucial 3-and-out at the end of the third quarter going into the fourth to give you the ball and swing momentum? Those are the things I'm looking for. It's not just the bottom line wins and losses. I think the Dallas Cowboys have been a perfect representation of the idea that you're not just what your schedule shows you. No, you have to really look and see how these games are unfolding. You have to really look and see who you're beating and who you're not beating. When you do play a team you don't beat, what's the quality of play? Because it's not just about wins and losses either. It's not just, oh well, you lost to the Rams. It's, well, how did you play against the Rams? What did that game look like? How did it unfold? How well did your defense do against Puka and Devontae and Stafford? That's what I'm saying. What does Dak Prescott look like against D'Amico's defense? Jesse Minter's and Baltimore's defense? What does that AC Tooley look like? So it's pretty fascinating. It's a really interesting schedule and an interesting blend of games. I look at some and think, yep, the Cowboys will absolutely roll and dominate this team. And then it's like, but what are they going to do in this other category of teams? We will see. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Dallas Cowboys? Colin was saying that he thinks historically they've been overexposed, but right now they are not. How do you feel? Do you think they'll be able to get back to the playoffs? Will Dak be able to lead Dallas back? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree, either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights, but ultimately let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here. I'd absolutely love to see you be part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be a part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.